Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 5th event in the MOVA webinar series. Today, we'll be talking about demand-driven training and youth employment. This will be a two-part event. The first hour will be a panel discussion in which our guests will talk about their experiences delivering demand-driven training. During the second hour, we will look more closely at the experiences and the lessons of the MOVA program's work on this subject. Before I go any further, I would like to highlight that this will be a multilingual event, and therefore we have simultaneous interpretation into Portuguese and English, and closed captioning into English is also available for this event. So if you would like to listen to the discussion in Portuguese, please go to the controls at the bottom of your screen and select the globe icon. From there, you can choose Portuguese. And likewise, if there are discussions in Portuguese and you would like to hear them in English, likewise, you can click on the globe and select the language of your choice to hear what's being said in Portuguese in English. If you are joining us from a phone, you will need to click on the options menu represented by the 3 dots on your screen. Click on the interpretation option, select your language, and then accept that choice by clicking done. If you would like to access captions in English, please select subtitles or CC at the bottom of your screen. And if you have any questions or problems, please write a message in the chat, and our technical team will be happy to assist you. So, to provide a bit of context for our webinar series, I'd like to say a few words about the MOVA program. MOVA was launched in 2015 as a flagship women's economic empowerment program in Mozambique, financed by the Department for International Development, now the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and implemented by Oxford Policy Management, or OPM. Over its 7 years of implementation, MOVA has piloted 24 different approaches to women's economic empowerment, with a range of pilot projects focused on labor market insertion and entrepreneurship. Through these pilots, and the findings which emerged from them, MOVA contributed to change in both policy and practice on women's economic empowerment in Mozambique and beyond. Although the MOVA program is now winding down, a national Mozambican NGO, also called MOVA, was established in 2020 and will continue the work begun under the MOVA program, thanks to the support of multiple donors. This webinar series is a chance for us to celebrate the rich learnings coming from MOVA and to continue to exchange with other practitioners on a range of essential subjects. So without any further delay, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tanya Lone, who will be facilitating today's discussion. Tanya is a consultant with OPM, whose work focuses on the delivery of quality education. Tanya, over to you.
Thank you so much, Magali, for that introduction, and welcome everybody to our panel discussion on the opportunities and challenges for demand-driven trainings for youth in Africa. So I'll just start by setting up the conversation very briefly, and then we'll go into and introduce some of the panelists that we have, and then start the discussion with them, which is going to be quite exciting. So we know that, despite significant gains in education and vocational skills training, the skills gap, especially amongst youth, is wide and unemployment is high in Africa. So according to the ILO, unemployment in the sub-Saharan Africa is essentially at its highest in the past 20 years. It's at 7.7%, and the situation is worse for women. The skills gap and unemployment have implications at various levels as well. So it affects people at the individual level, but also has organizational and countrywide implications. And we see demand-driven trainings as a potential solution to the skills gap in Africa. They offer a tailored training program that respond directly to specific requirements of a job role for employers and leads to placement in employment and also self-employment as a possibility. And so aspects of a demand-driven program are essentially tailored to align with the employer's expectations. So this could include things like the content and curriculum, the recruitment, and other things. So we're seeing this as a solution, and today's discussion is sort of going to revolve around that. And we will also reflect on demand-driven trainings in terms of the complexity of the labor market, the art of youth preparation, in terms of the different kinds of skills as well that they would need, particularly soft skills, the challenge of reactive response to the private sector, and the specific the specific power within needed for girls in this journey. Our panelists come from a sort of have a range of international experience on demand-driven training with a focus on Southern Africa in particular, and are practitioners who have been directly involved in designing and delivering demand-driven trainings for youth. So with this, I'll request each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into the questions. So Dr. Christy Olenki, we can start with you if you could just give us a brief introduction, and we'll go around the room after that.
Sure, happy to. And thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Christy Olenek. I'm the Vice President of Technical Services at Making Sense International. Making Sense is a small organization based out of Washington, D.C. We work globally on a number of different issues related to, international development. We focus a great deal on economic opportunities, and particularly for young people. So that's why I'm here today. My expertise is in youth development and research and evaluation, and worked for a number of years in workforce development. So I'm happy to be here to talk about this important topic.
Thank you so much for that. Kyla Sparks, could I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kyla Sparks. I'm joining you from Johannesburg, South Africa this afternoon. I am a research analyst at the Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator here in South Africa, and Harambee is a not-for-profit social enterprise building African solutions for the global challenge of youth unemployment. We work in South Africa with many partners who are committed to results that can work at scale. Partners include government, private sector, civil society, and of course, the youth themselves. Currently, we have a network of nearly 2 million young people in our sphere of influence. And it's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Anne-Cécile, could I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Thank you very much. My name is Anne-Cécile Manicom Rebello. I work for MOVA in Mozambique from the beginning, from 2015. I'm an anthropologist, and I worked with the team in the design of soft skill for the first round of demand-driven trainings. And we have been amazed to work on measurement and impact and redesign. So I'm also really happy to share with this wonderful person today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, Lelio Gungulo, could I ask you to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm a senior facilitator in MOVA. Cecile and Magali have talked already about MOVA, so I won't repeat. But with MOVA, I'm a facilitator, as I said already. And I'm also a project manager. So I have worked with different projects that work with soft skills training. And recently, I'm working specifically in a demand-driven training approach in Cabo Delgado, and which is already happening as of now. And I'm very excited to be sharing the experiences that we have with that project. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the introduction. So just in terms of getting into the discussion, so I will start the panel off with a few questions. But then at the end, we'd also like to take questions from the participants and the audience of this panel. And so if you have any questions that come up or any questions at all at the end, please feel free to type them in the chat box, and I can go over them at the end. Maybe we'll keep sort of 10 to 15 minutes at that point to answer them. But yeah, so just to get us started, so as I just mentioned, demand-driven training programs are quite tailored to needs of job roles, right? And that presents itself with its own kinds of opportunities and challenges. And I think I would like to unpack that a little bit with our panel today. So Christy, if I could actually start with you again, because of your experience of developing a demand-driven training framework and a toolkit, what do you see as some of the key opportunities and challenges of demand-driven training, and especially the implementation of it? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Tanya. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, so let me just give a little bit of background. In 2017, we had a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation to do some research on demand-driven training programs. And so we did basically some research on 10 global demand-driven training organizations that were working in youth employment. And many of them were operating in Africa. Our focus, in fact, was in South Africa. But we did work with global organizations in this research. And so we created a framework that outlined essentially how these organizations were running their demand-driven training programs. So we took all their good practices and processes, and we essentially put them into a kind of a process map or a framework. And the framework really focuses on how these programs were engaging both employers and young people. So there's kind of a process map for each stakeholder group, employers and young people. And of course, we defined demand-driven training as well based on the research. And how we defined it was really looking at youth programs that were building job-relevant skills, a set of competencies valued by employers, and that could also be used for self-employment. So many of these programs were using pre-employment skills development programs. So they were teaching soft skills, getting young people ready for the workplace, but they were also providing on-the-job training or hands-on experience. So we kind of termed this work-based learning. There was always some kind of on-the-job training aspect of these programs. And we actually created kind of a continuum of what we saw in demand-driven training. And so there were programs that were what we would call demand-aware. They were maybe working in a number of high-growth sectors, providing general employability skills, kind of on one end of the spectrum. The next one would be demand-aligned programs that were preparing young people maybe to work in a specific sector. So the pre-employment training maybe had a focus on what the sector skill needs were going to be, as well as soft skills training. But demand-driven trainings were really focused on training young people for specific jobs. So the kind of relationship that was necessary with the employer really had to be a clear one in terms of understanding what the specific job needs of employers were and being able to match young people with specific jobs. So I would say that, in terms of opportunities and challenges, the opportunities are that there are lots of good programs working in demand-driven training that have lots of great experience in this, and have learned to, I think, work really well with employers to understand what their needs are, and then to get young people prepared for these entry-level jobs. Most often they're entry-level positions. I think the challenge is that there's still a lot to be done. I mean, Tanya, you mentioned there's still a lot of young people without employment. And so how do we scale these very, I would say, nuanced programs that require a lot of effort, time-intensive relationship building with employers, but also really hands-on work with young people to get them ready for jobs. So I'll just stop there and look forward to hearing what my other panelists, colleagues have to say.
Thank you so much for that. That's very useful. And also in terms of with the framework, setting some of the context up, but also from your experience. And I think we're going to be coming a bit to scale later in the conversation as well. So Kyla, similar question to you. If you could tell us a bit about, from your experience in Harambee, what are the opportunities and challenges of implementing demand-driven training?
Great. Thanks, Tanya. And I think I really just absolutely agree with what Christy has said. And I think just to add on to, just to sort of take it a little bit further, is that it's that key relationship with employers, just to really understand what needs to be taught in the training. It's because, I mean, you're training and you want it to be targeted for an audience that you are training for. So that really is a key opportunity. It's about building that relationship to understand what needs to be taught. And I mean, at the end of the day, the employers are the same people who you're trying to place young people with. So if teams can be focused on their energy, so in Harambee, we have dedicated teams whose dedicated energy really is this relationship building with employers, to create these sort of strong relationships that employers are both sort of the advisors on the training material and they're the eventual destinations for young people. I mean, on the flip side, at the same time, there is this challenge where you need to try and find employers who are willing to partner in this way. And so take the time to give inputs into the content and to be a receiver of the product. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Super helpful. I think maybe Lelio, I could ask you the same question next, because I think from your experience of working so closely with some of the youth and people, it would be great to bring that perspective in now.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to maybe add a little bit of more of the story that I mean, the part of the historical experience that I had, because before we started this demand-driven approach, we did several trainings in which we were very focused on the young people in general. So we would bring like specific skills for them and even add it to technical skills, and then we'd go to the employers and say, hey guys, we have these young people, they have this technical skill, they have these soft skills, can you please insert them? Which had its own success, but it had its own challenges as well. And I think after a certain while implementing this type of approach, we decided that maybe the best way to look at it would be to first talk to the employees and have them telling us what is more important, what's more important to bring into the training. And I would say that some of the opportunities that come with the demand-driven approach is not only the fact that we have the employees telling us exactly the profile that they're looking for, which we can use in the mobilization and selection process. So as we know a bit more in detail what the employees want, we can have like a better eye, like as the facilitators and as the mobilization team, we have like a better understanding of how to look for the specific profiles that the employees are looking for. And also this year we're trying to even involve the employees throughout the training. They come also to assist, to be part of some of the trainings sessions, and like give them specific feedback to the young people. So I think only that, the fact that we involve more the employees, it already gives them, makes them feel like they're involved in it and they want to hire them. So it helped us in increasing the insertion rate. But I'd also say that one other challenge is that sometimes the employees, they would give you like a good profile, but then there would be like contextual changes that might, let's say, force the employees to not hire those young people. So it's not always certain that they will be the ones hiring the young people. I think I'll stop there to leave the word for other people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lelio. And Cecile, over to you for the same question to get everyone's perspective.
Thank you. I think my perspective is really similar of my colleagues. My sensation after more than 7 years working in this area, it's a kind of quite complicated puzzle. You can develop a good communication, you can develop a good packaging of soft skill, technical skill. My sensation is really linked with the first presentation of Christy when she speak about the stakeholders. And my sensation is the sensation that you have a puzzle and you have to join the technical vocational training centers, the government, the private sector, the soft skills specialists, the civil society, and to create with them the same vision, the same expectation of the quality, what means quality for soft skill, what means quality for technical skills. The same thing was saying Kyla, what means quality for them. When you speak about soft skill, what I can say, it's a good communication, perhaps it's not a good communication for the employer. So this, the fact you can acertar, you can specialize your indicators with all these stakeholders is the first part of the puzzle. And there's three other one, who is the question of time, money, and follow-up. So if we all agree about quality, but an employer tell me, well, I need a use for in 1 month. Well, it's complicated to train a use in 1 month. So I think time, money, and this puzzle are quite complicated in this game. And the second aspect that has been quite a challenge is between a demand-driven training, specific job, and in some way, if you only worked in some specific job, you lose opportunities. So how also you scale up, also you multiply your opportunity, multiplying your trainings, because it's a lot of work. So I will say this is a little bit the challenge we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And this sets us up kind of nicely, I guess, for the next question, because it is a very complicated puzzle, right? But then there are also these gendered aspects and gendered barriers that are there as well. And so, I would like everyone to sort of reflect on what are the key gendered barriers to employment, and how can demand-driven trainings be leveraged to provide equal opportunity to women? And Kyla, I'd like to start with you, because you've got, you bring this sort of gender equity and social inclusion experience. And I'd love to hear from you first, and then hear the rest of the panel as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tanya. I think to kick us off, in our South African context, women have a very disproportionate burden of care work that acts as a real barrier to participation. I mean, it adds to, it creates sort of additional barriers to participation in the labor market for women. I mean, there's potentially the threats of sexual harassment that exists within our labor market and working contexts, that again is disproportionately borne by young women when conducting a job search. Often we find that gender norms govern employer perceptions about young women and young men's capabilities, of who can do what types of work. So that's where we also see gender barriers existing. And so, I mean, and just to add to that is that there's actually there's very little clear evidence that dictates competency between the genders for certain roles. One thing that I could definitely say is that demand-driven training really it's able to kind of really provide that sort of equal opportunity for women by providing a platform for young women to participate and demonstrate their competencies to employers during training processes. They could also, just additionally to that, the way that we sort of source and profile, again, based on the job requirements, there's opportunity for a lot of advocacy work with employers to ask them to reconsider and shift mindsets. And so I think the amazing thing about demand-driven training is that it's, while gendered barriers do exist for especially young women into the labor market, demand-driven training, I think, does provide a channel through which to address and lower barriers to participation, especially for women. Thanks, Tanya.
Carla, that's actually quite encouraging to hear. And Cecile, I know that MOVA also works very closely with women, and I'd love to hear your perspective on the gendered barriers and also how, whether, you know, demand-driven training presents an opportunity or a challenge.
Well, this is our favorite in MOVA, to speak about gender barriers in demand-driven training. I will not speak so much because I will speak the second hour, and the 1st of June also I will speak specifically in agency and soft skills. So I will go short, and I think Lael, you know the field, so I will let him the time. But this is a main issue. And I will just give 3 examples of it. So for me, there's the first step that is the access. And in some way, something really surprised me, and it was so simple. It was only to change the picture in communication when you do the mobilization to integrate a journey, a training. So just to put a woman in a position where she can get access to training multiplies the number of women registering. It's so simple, but it has been so efficient. So the fact that you're in the community, you give access to picture, you project the girl, make a huge difference. And it was amazing to compare that without that, there was no girl appearing, like they were completely invisible. The second thing is during the training. So MOVA tests several possibilities that I will speak after in the presentation. But something I've been really strong is the potential to mix men and women inside the training, speaking about the profession and speaking about gender issues. So MOVA created a soft skill module inside of the demand-driven training to make all teachers, youth, reflect all together about what it means inside the room and what it means when she will be in the interview and when she'll be inside the company or the fabric. And I love, Kyla, that you spoke about the mindset of employers, because now, well, we are really novice in this area, but we are trying to design a corporate training to try to reflect with the company about what means gender, not just a purple wash, but what means gender when you, and not only for women, what's a good induction, what means to receive youth in my company, and what is my responsibility. And inside also there's a gender perspective we can work, but I speak too much.
No, thank you so much. This is amazing insight. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from all of the different programs that are happening. Dr. Christie, asking you the same questions. You think demand-driven trainings can be leveraged to provide equal opportunity to women?
Yeah, so I think, Kyla and Cecile have really set the stage on sort of what the main barriers are for young women. I would say the one unique thing that really identifies demand-driven training programs is not only the pre-employment and the on-the-job skills training, but the post-placement support and mentoring. And I think for women in particular, there are a lack of role models in the workplace. And I feel like this is a really important aspect of a good demand-driven training program, is to ensure that there is post-placement support and mentoring in the workplace. And of course, that links with a lot of the ideas that have already been presented on employer awareness, onboarding, but also retention, and making sure that as you're bringing young women on, they're linked with other women in the workplace so that they feel comfortable, they understand what their role is going to be, in addition to all of the aspects of employer awareness that have already been noted.
Thanks. That's a really crucial sort of addition, I think, that you've made. And Lelio, any thoughts, additional thoughts on this?
Yes, thank you. I would like to point maybe some other three elements. Like when we started working with this demand-driven approach, we started with two specific areas, which was security agent and waiters. And for security agents, for example, this is an area where we understood that there was not a lot of women working in. So because of different aspects, and we understood first of all that there is this was the first element that I wanted to bring in, that there was a lot of myths about women not being capable of working in shifts, not being capable of working in like so long hours standing. Like this is a very challenging thing. It's very difficult, yet you cannot do it. And there's a lot of people whispering in the neighborhood that this is not for you. So I think the fact that we're doing a demand-driven training also helps in the way that we mobilize people. Like what Cecile was saying, that just the fact that you put a woman in the poster and as you're mobilizing people already sets a tone for women to come in, and they actually understand that, hey, actually, this is for me as well. Let me go. So I think that was the first element that I wanted to bring in. And the second element that I wanted to bring in is that even for the employers, it was a bit of wow. Okay, so there's women that are coming in to work in this area, because even themselves, they were used to just receiving men's CVs to come in. So when they see that now there is women, but it's not only women, but it's competent women coming into the areas, they also got shocked, and they actually understood that this is not only an area for one person. So although this is a process that takes a while, because we're still working with the employees, and even when they start seeing that there is some few women coming in, then there's a need to we need to still keep doing a constant work to make them let's say better understand the environmental issues that might block women from going to certain areas and not to going to others, because there's certain let's say conditions that needs to be set in place for women. For instance, let's say there needs to be like a specific toilet for women. There needs to be certain like sleeping conditions for them to move into another area. So that there's all these conditions or environmental issues that need to be addressed by the employees, so that the women can actually go and do the work. And I think I also would like to link with what Dr. Christie was saying about the role modeling. I think with the fact that we bring this demand-driven approach, now they are seeing that there is actually some women who have done the training and they're now working, and they're going there. They're seeing them walking in the neighborhood with this, with the office work of security agents, and they're realizing that, hey, actually, even me, I can do this. So I think the fact that this demand-driven training brings specific women to these specific areas already creates a space for role models to be in the neighborhoods, for them to actually inspire others to come in. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is actually encouraging to hear some of that. Shifting gears to, I think, one of the most, I think, crucial challenges of demand-driven training, it seems, which is how do you scale it up? It's so tailored and it's so specific, right? How do you make it reach more people? How do you scale it up in different ways? I think Dr. Christie, you already pointed to this in the beginning, and we said we'd come to it. So we want to think about scale up, and if people can reflect on what has worked and what hasn't. And Dr. Christie, since you mentioned it, I think maybe we'll start with you and then go around.
Sure, happy to. I mean, this is a tough question. As you said, Tanya, demand-driven trainings, good ones are really tailored. And the biggest challenges I think we've seen are as we've mentioned, with employer engagement. Some of the ways that I've seen scale up happen really well is if you're working with employers in a particular sector. and you've kind of concentrated in one sector. You've brought employers together that are willing to engage in sector-specific kinds of training activities. They're willing to collaborate, work together. As the training organization, you're then able to really tailor the pre-employment skills training, some of the filtering of young people that would be coming through this pipeline for employment. So that's worked quite well. Otherwise, what I've also seen is connection through government training programs. They have usually, I would say in my experience, been more demand aware or demand aligned than demand driven training, I might say. Because oftentimes the government training programs, they give you scale because they are multiple locations and they're serving huge populations of young people. But it's very difficult to get that tailored experience of the training program, training the young person for a specific job. It can happen, and that's really, I think, one of the fastest ways you can scale up a demand-driven training program is working through a government agency or some kind of government relationship, but that has its pros and cons as well. I'm sure Kyla probably has some good things to say, and Cecile and Lily as well on that topic.
Since you've highlighted that, thank you so much. Maybe Kyla, we'll move to you next, as Dr. Christie's mentioned. Grateful to learn from your experience of scaling up demand-driven training. Things that have worked and haven't.
Absolutely. I think Dr. Christie absolutely set the scene really, really well for the challenges of scaling. And I think just the things that can work. I think a challenge that I know that we have experienced is the relationship between in-person demand-driven training or self-directed demand-driven training. And I mean, the reality is that there is a cost ceiling of how much in-person demand-driven training that can be done. For example, I know at Harambee, our longest in-person training was 5 weeks. And so so it's, I mean, there are cost implications to that. I mean, what doesn't work when you kind of think about self-directed training is not carefully thinking through self-directed training. And that being like the things like cost and the medium. So and understanding well, like how young people prefer to learn. And then you've also obviously got additional barriers to participation, something that we struggle with in South Africa, access to data and being able to participate in online forums. One of our platforms, SA Youth, we've worked really, really hard to make it a zero-rated data site so that it's free. You don't need sort of data to participate on that or in the training processes. And so, I think challenges really are to scale. For scaling, really, I think do come down to I think the cost ceiling that does exist, and that relationship between do you do it in person, do you do it self-directed, and we're figuring this out as we go along. So thanks.
Great, thanks. I think definitely we all are, but really helpful to have those kind of things to set it up in a way in terms of cost and the other in-person versus self-directed. Lelio, could I ask you to chime in next?
Yes, maybe I would like to also build into what Kayla was saying about the context that needs to be taken in consideration to implement, and also the fact that there's a cost implicated into scaling the demand-driven trainings. I wanted to maybe focus on the how much it requires a technical, let's say, a certain technicality for you to scale, because at the moment you have this demand driven training, like once it's tailor made, once it's kind of like set, you have a team that is very let's say very well known about this specific topic. And to scale up, it kind of requires you to like train a new team, like to like, and also like trying to understand the specific context that is in this new area. So like, it's not just you just take one packaging that was working in Maputo, for example, and you just take it to Cabo Delgado and you think that it's going to be working the same way. There's a lot of contextual issues that needs to also be taken in place. And like, even the fact that what employers will tell you in Maputo that they understand as having like good communication skills might differ than the ones that than what they actually mean in Cabo Delgado, for example. So like, the fact that although we might have like a almost closed packaging that works in one area, doesn't completely mean that the same packaging will work in other areas. So I just wanted to point out that factor. Yeah.
Great. So there's, aspects of tailoring, but also contextualization that are very relevant. Thank you so much. And Cecile, from your experience of demand-driven trainings and scale up.
For me, the word scale up is the word nightmare. I'm not the good person. I should not speak. I'm so afraid of this word. So, well, it's complicated for MOVA. It's a small institution. We are here. We are trying to do our best. We began with a territorial aspect, really community, really close to people, with some neighborhood, knowing everybody, and has a soft skill, passionate person. It's complicated for me to let it go. Like, if you go shorter, if you have cost, you have to reduce the quality of your soft skill training. When you are working with these girls who have been traumatized, passing through incredible, brave stories, you need time to stimulate again, to believe again. And it's not only just to learn how you do this with this and you draw and it's okay. I think the soft skill, it's absolutely important to defend yourself in an interview, to maintain your position when you're in negotiation, in a reception, in a communication with a team. So we need time and we need quality. I think it's necessary we scale up, and I think it's necessary we make sacrifice, but my main question is at what price? And also because in the other side, the employers are waiting for us, like, it's good, it's not good. I've not been so satisfied. So it's very stressful because you want the quality, you want to do the integration of the maximum use, because this is a big responsibility, and you need to have a good satisfaction of the employees at the end. So this is really a nightmare for me. We're still not in the same experimentation as Arambe, like Kyla was speaking, and I'm so amazed by the work of Arambe. We hope we will arrive there. But it's very stressful. It's very stressful because what do we want? What are we dreaming? A lot, a lot, and how we do this balance between both of them. So it's very terrible world for me. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Anne Cecile. And I guess maybe, Anne, I'll come back to you again for this next question, which is, what is the next big thing for youth employment in Africa? And what do you think is the way forward for demand-driven training? So, Anne Cecile, if you can come back again on this. Oh, you're mute.
Can you repeat just 1 second?
Yeah, so I was saying, so I'll come back to you for the next question as well. So what is the next big thing for youth employment in Africa? And, what is the way forward for demand-driven trainings?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a really big question. I think the first word coming in my mind, because I know that MOVA would like to advance in this direction, is trust. We need to link the puzzle between the stakeholders, and we need to trust. And if we are not able to do it, we have to communicate and to try to train all together. MOVA at the beginning was partnership, you will see, and after we tried to do all on our own and we say it's not possible. So now we have to stop and try to find a way to all of us be empowered, not only the girls, but us also, to try to find the several manners to do demand-driven training. Like Christy was saying, there's not one way, there's several ways to do it. And we have to be inspired. For us at this moment, we are the student of Arambe. Our dream is to go where they are going and learning from them. But we want to know a lot about other countries and try to experiment more. And for me, it was actually the big debate here in MOVA. And I was speaking, I don't know how you say that in English, uma vitrina. Is when you are in a window shop, and you see the beautiful things, like you pass on the street and you see in the shop this window with all the products. And I think there's something where you have to go quick and you need to respond to this youth that needs to be employed. And in some way, we need to keep a vitrine. We need to keep this window with the possibility that others can learn. We can experiment again. I don't see the future of demand-driven training like a solution that will stay forever. And for example, the youth we have here is not the same we had 5 years ago. So we need to be flexible. We need to listen to them. And also, I think we need to create spaces, not only our responsibility, but we need to create spaces where youth and employer also speak to each other and not always expecting that civil society will do the translation between both of them. This is a little bit my sensation.
Great, thank you so much. I think you talked a bit about Harambee. So Kyla, I would like to come to you next and talk about, what do you think is the next big thing, especially around demand-driven training?
Thanks, Tanya. I think there definitely are some macro trends that we could tap into around what could be the next kind of big thing. I think just some of my very broad reflections are, I think we've seen a real rise in like the gig economy and gig work, and it would be amazing to see if just the global south could really come on board and tap into that. So I think there definitely is some opportunity to tailor demand-driven training into that sort of sphere of work. But I think to bring it right down to what Harambee has been piloting and trying out are just some very innovative and integrated work learning experiences. So we had one where we operated, we had a proper employer, it was an incubator model where it was an academy model for contact center agents servicing a cell phone company in South Africa. And what it showed to us was just that there are innovative, integrated ways that training and employment can be married. So like demand-driven training can happen in a real-time simulated environment that feeds trained and upskilled workers straight into an industry. So we are experimenting. We currently are doing it in. We've currently got one project that's doing this as well for technical operators as well. So we've piloted into a call center context, and we are piloting it into technical. How to describe them, like sort of ICT technician individuals, but just really, I think, looking to for creative ways that sort of integrate work and learning experiences, but that are also simultaneously, well, some of them are funded by employers themselves. So we are at the moment experimenting with some models. So hopefully that might be the next big thing. So we'll let our pilots run, and then we'll see how they go. So thank you.
Brilliant. That sounds actually very exciting work happening at Arambi. Lelio, could you come in as well on the same question?
Yes, thank you. I think Cecile and Kayla have already gone through the let's say different models that should be taken in place for us to like have let's say to have a better environment for demand-driven trainings in the future and like the future for the youth. I would also like to say that at the end of the day, I think that's kind of like also right to what Dr. Christy was saying, is that it doesn't really, there's different approaches that can be taken in place. But because the unemployment rates are so high, as you also said, Tanya, at the beginning, I think we need to also have just more people being trained and more employees being open now to receive more young people. I think if we can manage to have like these interventions, managing to find the best way to scale up what we're already doing, that would be, I know Cecile said it's a nightmare, but it's something that is needed. We really need to find like ways to increase our numbers, to reach more people, to reach more areas. I think that could be the best way to go, let's say, forward, because it's something that was proven to be like needed, and I think the environment needs. I think the other thing that I wanted to just point out is that is this point of the connection. I think if we manage to have like more employees connected to the young people and connected to the organizations that are developing these packagings, I think that would be the success. Thank you.
Brilliant. And Dr. Christy, if you can come in on this one.
Sure. So this is a really big question, and I just wanted to make kind of 2 points on it. I mean, making sense works quite a lot in the agriculture sector, and I feel like it's a huge opportunity, in particular in Africa, for youth employment. And, you know, I'm sure everyone's heard the latest news on how the war in Ukraine is going to be impacting the food crisis as a result of that war. And I just really feel like, you know, some kind of demand-driven training programs in this sector are going to be really important in the future. Agriculture has always been a bit of a tough sector, I think, for getting young people involved, because they're not particularly excited about the physical labor. But when you, you know, get young people understanding how different innovative techniques and technologies can be involved in agriculture, they really get bought in. So I'm just going to throw that one out there. I know it's a bit of a zinger in terms of, you know, the topics that we're talking about, but I just feel like if we're going to go big, ag could be a good sector for us to really focus on. The other point I'll make, which I think Anne Cecile touched on as well, is building collective action around youth employment, and how we continue to kind of work together as colleagues in this effort. Making Sense actually is working on a Youth Economic Opportunities 2030 campaign, where we are bringing organizations together around the Sustainable Development Goal 8 on youth employment. And so we're going to be continuing to have regional meetings, gatherings of young people and those working in the youth employment sector. So I'm just going to encourage everyone who's, you know, here. I'll share the link with information. But just, you know, for us all to stay connected and to work together, it's not going to happen otherwise.
Thank you so much. That's very, very insightful. I can see that there is also one question in the chat. So maybe we can address that. If there are other questions that I cannot see, please someone point it out. But I'll say it out loud and then let the panel respond. So I think this is sort of a two-part question. And it says that, you know, considering that you're working with a sample or a small number of employers and companies with limited job opportunities, especially in Mozambique, how can we keep the soft skills and concepts that have been developed fresh in young people during training? So how do we keep those concepts sort of in mind, especially when it takes a long time to actually get a job? So, the gap between the training and the job, how do we make sure those soft skills and those concepts are fresh? And the second part of this is when in the workplace, the soft skills pointed out by companies are not considered relevant. So I think the second part sort of linked to the first is, what do you do when the soft skills requested by employers are not considered relevant anymore? So this is sort of two parts. How do you keep them fresh amongst the trainees, and also how do they stay relevant? I see Cecile laughing, so I feel like she wants to go first. And then, I feel free to jump in, I think, because if you want to add to it, add to the response, just do so.
Thank you very much. In MOVA, we've been quite lucky. I will present it to you after. We have a different range of time for the integration of youth inside the employment, but in some way it took for some of the youth 6 months, and you're totally right. I will present it more specifically the 1st of June, the impact about measurement of attitude around the time during the training, when they are doing the internship, and after 6-month internship. And normally this year we will make a presentation to explain 2 years after what's happening. So it's quite exciting. But what we realize, it's exactly, if you finish your training and you take time for your insertion job, actually your individual skills get down. Your teamwork is still present. So when you do your training or you refresh your training, you see that the teamwork is something that's staying easily than the individual skill. And it's quite interesting because we work with youth and women. So when you are all together, you see this energy is going, but the individual is very linked with the interview is going down, but because this is your self-esteem. This is also linked with your power within your intrapersonal skills. So when you give all this energy and after you are not connected with the job, you lose your self-esteem and you lose your energy. So there's a kind of correlation about it. So what we do, it's when we worked with them to facilitate the integration, when we know that there's an opportunity, we refresh a training for interview to be sure that they are again with a team, again with a group of youth. They are not the only one behind. So we give all this trust again in one day. So it's not a lot, but it's 1 or 2 day training again before going back to the reality of the job. For the stay relevant, I select Lelio because I speak a lot, so I don't want to speak too much.
But I think Cecile, you said everything about the keeping the skills. I think I wanted to maybe comment on the second part of the question, which is what happens if the employee after a while decides that those skills are not really relevant anymore. We've never experienced anything like that, like any employee saying, any employer coming afterwards and saying, oh, actually what I said that was relevant now is unrelevant and it's not relevant anymore. Like what I was saying at the beginning is that maybe what happens is that maybe some employees, some employers, after a while, even though they say that they would want to employ, let's say 6-10 people, after a while, some contextual things might happen and they might not be able to employ like the 6-10 people that they said they wanted. But and I think that's one of the strong points about the demand-driven trainings, because they'll actually tell you exactly what is important, what are the important skills for that area, and they normally don't really change. They might change from one context to another. Like for example, from one country to another, definitely they will change, and from one province to another, they will definitely change. But I don't think the same employee would change the skills for the same area. Yeah.
Great. Kyla, is this a question you'd like to come in on?
I mean, it's a slightly controversial kind of take on it, but I think I think it kind of speaks back to, in a sense, like a partnership approach, where I think this question kind of places the onus on the training provider and on the employer. And I would also kind of counter and say that young people also do have a responsibility to also participate. And so absolutely, I think that the reality of that gaining employment isn't always a linear journey, especially with demand-driven training. There isn't always a guaranteed job at the end. But I think there does remain some onus of responsibility on the young person to stay fresh as well, to a certain degree. But partnerships, thank you. Slightly controversial, sorry.
No, thanks. Go ahead.
I would just like to add on to Kyla's point. I mean, there's lots of ways to serve. And I think, one of the things I wanted to mention is that ways that young people can continue to get employment skills and soft skills is through service learning, civic engagement. If you're not employed and you're not in an internship, there are other ways to serve your community. And, maybe you're not making money, but you are gaining skills. And there's lots to be said around, doing teamwork together. There's all kinds of skills you can gather in a service learning kind of environment. So highly encourage that. And that can be something that a young person takes on themselves, as well as us as, training providers thinking through how can we connect young people to service learning programs that might be in our community.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for bringing those perspectives in. And I think we've reached our hour. Thank you to all of the panelists for this wonderful discussion and for bringing your sort of diverse experiences to this discussion. I will hand back over to Magali in that case. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. And many, many thanks to our panelists for the insights that you've shared during this hour, and to you, Tanya, for facilitating such an interesting discussion. It's been really fascinating to hear about our panelists' work on youth employment, on the challenges, but also the opportunities of demand-driven training, and also about the, frankly, difficult realities of trying to scale for greater impact. So thank you all for this discussion. We will now shift gears and prepare for the second part of our event. So we will take a brief 5-minute break, returning at just 10 past the hour. And we will then zoom in on MOVA's work on demand-driven training and labor market insertion for youth. So please stay on this link. And we will be right back and continue the discussion in just 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. For the second part of today's event, Cécile will present in greater detail about MOVA's way of working on demand-driven trainings. Over to you, Cécile.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I hope you're not too tired. So I have the big responsibility, and I will try in English. And as you can hear by my accent, well, I'm not English. I'm not Anglophone. So I will do my best. I have my English vocabulary list here, and I have everything to try to present. So we can start, actually, if you're okay. Okay, so my task here this afternoon with you is to present you the MOVA experience about designing different and several demand-driven trainings in Mozambique. So Magali already explained what is MOVA. Just I would like to focus that MOVA has two different ways of work. One is entrepreneurship that I have been in part presented last week. And here we are going to focus in job insertion. around this question of youth and the question of female economic empowerment. It's okay. Yeah, I can change. I need the... So the question here for us was, in the context of Mozambique, how can we increase opportunity for youth? And the challenge in Mozambique is quite big, with 300,000 youth joining the labor force market every year. So, Christy, I took the opportunity to inspire from the pyramid of making sense. In this pyramid, you will see the different kind of abilities of the youth that can attend the labor market. So in this pyramid of the youth, we have the illiterate youth. That actually it's a really big part of the pyramid, with 44.945% of the population included. 3/4 are youth. So it's a big number. After you have the basic low skill youth, so this is the one who can read and write, and some of them can't. After that, I called it job skills. This is the one who in their neighborhood have the opportunity to learn in an autodidact way by their own, with some people of their family. It's a quite informal way to learn. And after you have the most classical one, the technical skills. In Mozambique, we have the opportunity to have some partnership with technical vocational training centers who works from 3 months to 3 years of technical skills with youth that give quite a good quality, and the classical university education. And on the top of the pyramid, you have the youth in job. And we don't have so much data around job insertion, but we have this 11% of youth informal job. So you can see that the market doesn't have so much youth in to integrate with the quality they are looking for. So this is a little cake. We put it here for the employees to go and find the youth in the labor market. Okay. So now when you know that, the question here in our presentation is to show you the several designs, the results, the impact, the focus that we have done in women, and the results we have been able to measure after the training, and the relationship with the employees, and at the end, the future and perspective of MOVA after this experience. Okay, so the design, let's go. We can pass, actually. So to design, we realized several interviews and researches. And what have been quite interesting is this relationship between youth and employers. And there's fact that began to amplify, and these facts become some assumptions and bias. And you have this lack of communication between both. So if we look at the way that employers are speaking about youth, the first thing they're speaking is, well, they don't have access to quality for education or training system. And there's a lot of corruption inside of this education training system. And because of that, they don't trust the quality of the youth when they finish their certification. And some of them don't trust the certification. So this a big barrier for the youth. The other thing in addiction is the lack of experience. So they come and they don't have the quality, they don't have the experiences, and they seems to look at the youth without this energy to research the information of opportunities, and have some lack also of attitude, that they don't have the ability to integrate with attitude the different job they offers. In the other side, for the employees, the youth are looking for opportunities as something like a mountain. So for them, when they are going, they are looking for the job as, well, too much demand, like the term of references are exaggerated. There's a lot of corruption. The way they are speaking is, well, if you want a job, you have to pay for it. You look for your network and you see with your uncle or your friend. And, well, it's quite normal to sell the job. So all this two factors create a lack of transparency, and a lack of transparency also in the recruitment process. There's not like a clear way that they're evaluating the candidates, how are done the exercises, the feedback of communication. And the sensation too is there's no first job opportunity. When they're asking for a youth to integrate, they must have already experiences. So how I'm dealing with this problem? And the last one is the problem of communication. They don't seem to see so much the opportunity in the journal, on the internet. It's really informal. So where I'm going to find this opportunities when I'm a youth? So you see that there's a kind of battles between both of them, and how we are going to reconnect all these issues to create solutions. We can go. Can we close the door, please? Just. So I will try to present to you in a really simple way how we try to design our journey. So in 2015, our main preoccupation was the youth and specifically the women. So what we are decided to design is to focus on the profile of the woman we wanted to work with. So the profile of MOVA, it's around 84% of young people living below the poverty line, with at this time scholarship level at the end of the primary to the secondary school level, with no experience of job. So what we do is we look at them and we look at the labor market. And when you see the labor market, we see what kind of area can absorb this kind of youth. So this is where we could begin to design our journey. So the journey begins to understand what will be the minimum requisition to register the youth inside our journey. And the second one was the technique of mobilization. So if you want to attract this youth, and particularly the women, you need to be really close from them. So it has been an amazing mobilization, what we've done during several years. It's to be close to them, link with the women of the community, link with the leadership, link with local civil society, create a specific communication with specific languages and images that really attract this youth, and particularly women. So a big time invested. The third aspect of this journey is the selection strategy. So what I was saying at the beginning is we try to do simple to try to integrate the maximum youth and women inside this journey. So the test was quite simple at this time. It was a very easy system of write and read if the communication was basic, just to make a verification. Where we invest a lot was about the motivation. We saw that you need people motivated. You can have basic skills, but if you're not engaged with or motivated to work, well, we are not going to make miracle. So we did something quite interesting, like 3 days trying to make the life of the youth not a misery, but you have to move, you have to search for information, you need to search for documents, you need to walk and come back. And we saw who was really engaged to be integrated in our journey. So this is the selection strategy we had for them. And after we pass for the work readiness training. Sorry, if my English is not clear, you can stop me, because my pronunciation is not very good. So in the work readiness, what we saw was fundamental was soft skill. The soft skill has been a very, very big investment. So what we do, we created a 3 months to 12 months training soft skill. You can show it. In the first packaging, it was really designed for a first module of social norms, professional orientation, introduction of entrepreneurship in case they wanted to go in another way than formal job, health and employment, and skills for employment, like teamwork, ethics, interview, CV, and we focus a lot of our time inside. In some other project, as Christy spoke in her presentation, we also decided to invest in the mentoring follow-up. So a most individual aspect where we speak and we personalize the coaching to share life experience that stimulate the development of personal and professional skills. So a really big moment. The second thing was the partnership with technical skills. So we partners with vocational centers. We also partners with company to receive several use for ongoing job. That has been quite amazing. And I think it's one of the main points of our learning. This possibility to create partnership for ongoing job brings a lot of quality. And the third one that has been an amazing experimentation is the question of digital skills. The digital gap is very big, and Kerry presented to OPM another webinar about it, so I will not get back to that. But the fact that we created a digital training linked with gender has been quite a pass for this young woman. In this different tentative, and I'm speaking about around 10 projects, more than 3,000 youth in this presentation, what we can say is this approach really helped the youth to go to the first job experience. And we have a good integration, but the question has been the time to integrate them in the labor markets. We took around 6 months, from 1 month to 6 months to place them inside the labor market, because the labor market from there was also changing. When you think, you can push the button, when you think again and again, when you think that you take around 4 to 12 months to prepare them, more 6 months to place them, you can go around 1 year and a half. And perhaps it was not the solution, and the cost is very expensive. From that, as we can go to £500 to £6,000 by use. It depends on the kind of methodology you have. So quality, we are sure, but the time and the cost was a question for us. So we decided to do a second experiment. So this is the first one is the one you can see in yellow. And now the one in white is the second one, where we focus in the employer looking for talent. And in this one, we're trying to create the trust and needs of the company. In this second aspect, we negotiate with the employer to understand what they want and to focus in hiring youth, and particularly women. That has been the negotiation, and with no experience. To create the trust with the company, where we invested a lot is the question of the definition of profile. Here it's a small profile that Arambe gave it to us, and we have been inspired. So I just would like to make a dedicace to Arambe for that. So we learned from Arambe this question of profiling, and the profiling is a kind of haute couture tailoring. Like, it's a very high level. We have like around 8 level of attitude scoring. We have a scoring around the technical skill. We have a scoring about the functional skills. So it has been a really big design and a better communication with the employer. But it has not been the only things. The second things have been the negotiation of time. They want to have a quick response. And for them, it was like, well, in 2 weeks, I would like, but it's really not possible. So the negotiation we succeed was around 2 months. So when you have to do in 2 months what you were doing in 4 or 12 months, well, you have to review the way you were doing. So this is why you can see that in the mobilization, we change for online mobilization and focusing to understand which school prepare this kind of youth. Also, it's not only that, it has been also COVID that, well, engages to go to online and school. The second thing is the quality of the test. So because you need trust with the company, you can't just do simple tests. So we created functional tests, literacy, numeracy. we created technical tests. It could be digital. In some cases, it was absolutely crazy. We make some partnership with teachers to evaluate the level, the technical level for work, engineering, maintenance, to be sure there was a minimum quality. And working directly with the company also asked us to really be exigent for, or demanding, for English. So when you pass a lot of time in your functional tests, you don't have a lot of time for soft skill. So the soft skill will be really reduced to 2 weeks to 1 month. But because this use passed through schools, they didn't need so much soft skill as the other one. The good thing is the insertion in job is immediate. Well, 100% of them are directly integrated in job. But we are losing the woman from the beginning. It's not the same profile. It's not the same rate of young people living below the poverty line. It's not the same school level. And some of them had already some experiences. So we were losing a little bit our mission and our vision. Now we are in a time that we are trying to mix a little bit both of this experiment. And what we are doing, it's something we spoke in the first hour, is we're trying to define ourselves in some specific job. So at this moment, we are training in receptionist, security, and restauration when you're serving people in the restaurant. And we are seeing that now that we have a kind of identification in the labor market, the company is beginning to come to us and ask us if we have youth in our basket that can integrate their company. So a new approach that we are still learning about. So now I will try to show you the results about job placement of this woman with the profile we had and how it was. So from these several experiences, the integration of the youth, you can pass, has been quite successful. So here you have two representations. On your left, you have the representation of job insertion, and you can see some data in colors and some other in gray. So what we've done several years ago, we analyze a compared group with the same socioeconomical level as our participants, and we try to understand their life, where they live, what they're doing, what their occupation, what their job insertion, etc., etc. So it has been amazing that in our impact evaluation, we have a group of comparison. So if you look at the table on your left, you can see that MOVA participants have 76% integration in job against 52 for the compare group. So a really big success, actually. And the other graphic, also on your left, the 51% is the qualified job. That was this job that demand more qualification. So you see that they are not only integrated in the labor market, but they have access to this job that asking more qualification. So also a quite good success for the participants. The other aspect of the results is the better finance management. So this is one of the examples. So you can see here in orange the baseline and in brown the end line. And you can see the jump after the demand-driven training around bank account, mobile money, and rotating saving group, that it's a quite practice here in Mozambique. So, well, this is another example. After job integration, I would like to speak to you about the impact on women empowerment. So as I was saying, we did a big investment around soft skill and particularly around social norms challenges. And I think this module make a big difference in the vision of youth around men and women participants. So when we speak about opportunity for youth, I was presenting you, yes, the pyramid of adapted from Making Sense. And if you look at it, you see that half of them, we can't forget, are women. And this woman has really more challenge than the other youth. You can judge the things. And actually, from the 11% of youth informal job, only 18%, 1/8, are women. So you can see that the opportunity for women is really less than for men. Can you click on that? So this is our woman, and this is the 18% of the employer. So the question is not anymore for us opportunity for youth, but it's really to understand the question of the opportunity for women. I will not go back to that, but we know that women have, in addition of their challenge of career study, a lot more to work with inside their private life. So how this woman in our demand-driven training has some result or not after the training. You can go. So this is exactly the same result I show you as a global aspect, but now defined between women and men. So when you look at your left, the purple numbers are defining the woman. And you can see that the job insertion for women is really more significant for women than for men. For men, they pass from 74% to 84%. But for women, we pass from 46% to 72%. So it's another world. So it's a really big opportunity. And around qualification jobs, we see that we make a big difference around elementary work and qualified work. So it's a big result and a big signification. And I will go back to that after. The other question that really interests me, you can go. Here's the question of women inside male, well, considered male area. So when we work with this company around industrial area, we were really challenged to speak with them around women. And they don't really believe that it was possible. At the beginning, they didn't seem to think that women were existing trained in this area. So here you have 6 examples. I will try to translate. I'm sorry, I didn't have the opportunity to write it. So you have operation and planning, engineering, IT, maintenance, industrial maintenance. Serraria is metal work and mechanics. So here I just put you some example of demand-driven trainings. You have the inscription, the functional test, the English test, the technical test, and the attitude test, training and test. So you have all our journey and how men and women are reacting. So you see on the top that men are in orange and women are in the other color. And always women are beginning really low, like we go to 5% to 71%. And you see that most of the case, they are quite around 40 to 60% at the end when we know that they have all the abilities to integrate the job. And it has been just amazing to see how only by good test, transparency and meritocracy, young girls well-trained defend themselves inside a selection process. Also, we have some cases that it was around 6 to 20%, but we always see that or they are maintaining or they are increasing inside the selection process. So it also has been an experience and a learning that we are still using with the company to show that it could be possible. Also, not only technical skills and selection, but also the well-being of this woman inside male, considered male area. So here you have a beautiful example of woman in, how you say that? Public work. And they have been trained inside a company, working on building things inside the community for 4 months. And on purple, at the beginning, the BL, the baseline woman, you see that they don't feel respected by others in community members. So it was the sensation about, well, I'm a woman in my community and I'm going to be a worker in public work, and I don't feel respected. I don't feel comfortable. Only 4 months after, if you see the end line, 94% of them are feeling really respected, and only 6% more or less, but none of them don't feel respected. It's an example of the 10 projects we had, and where with colleagues, with family, with community, they testified that the fact they pass through this demand-driven training, they pass through these experiences of job, they are mixed with other people, give them confidence and give them recognition from the others. And we have always that in our project. And this is, for me, making parts of the Power with the team a great satisfaction. I can go. So yes, a lot of success, but I think it's important also to speak about the limitation and the barriers around gender persisting. So the negotiation with the companies are still quite complicated to engage with the women inclusion in particularly masculine sector. The question also of the induction, we were speaking about that in the first hour. Only few companies have induction program, and some few induction programs have a gender perspective. So also when you are working with these youth and they don't have a good reception, a good understanding of the ambience of the job, it's also created some issues that need to be taken in consideration by the companies. The other limitation is the number of women trained to be included in the selection process. And this number, as you have seen in the presentation, is very low in the masculine area. And the other question, what we also speak already, is the question of the consideration of gender perspective inside the communication for recruitment. The image, the way you are looking for the girls, where the kind of communication you can get because of the digital gap. So all this consideration must be taking into consideration from the employers. So now, speaking about employers, what are they thinking? What did we learn? So the first things I would like to say is the big work we've done around profile has been a really big success. When we engage to really detail our efforts to know that my candidate has to be good organization, dynamism. So I'm translating you what it's written in Portuguese, sorry. Punctuality, ID structuration. Well, I will not say all of them. Formal languages, formality, motivation, personal motivation, and motivation with the others. So you see that when you go and you speak with the employer, so what is going to be the job? What is going to be the ambience? What is going to be the attitude of the youth? So for each profession, we change the weight. If you're going to be very autonomous, you don't need so much communication skill. If you're going to be a seller, you need a lot of communication skills. So at any time we are doing the soft skill training, we are really putting the weight of these indicators in consideration, and exactly the same for the technical skills. So I wanted to give you an example. But this, when we arrive to the several private sector and public sector and show the list of the candidate with the scores for all the aspects they wanted, they feel very more in trust with MOVA and with the youth. After that, we wanted really to connect and to understand what were their satisfaction. Are they happy with the use they received? And actually, this research is not as easy as it looks like. It's not so easy because they don't have so many time. Perhaps the person who is responding the question is not the person who knows personally the youth and the intern. So it's a quite complicated aspect to try to realize an impact around satisfaction and an employer. But we have been happy. We have been lucky. We worked also with another company who know better than us at this point, and they help us to create a questionnaire. And well, from several experience, what we saw that they have been satisfied is around time saving from training needed, access to large talent pool, retention of candidate, and help to reach their gender targets. So just I will go to 2 points, if you may. The first one is a time saving. So from the several employers, they said that they pass either the same time or less time to train the mover candidate as compared to the others one. And they spoke around 5 hours, either 5 hours to less. So it's really significant. 5 hours per week. It's not so much when you have a new employer in your company. The second thing has been the question of the access to the large pool. So this, for me, it's a beautiful restitution around the question of soft skill. So you can see in purple that they are really satisfied, green satisfied, and in gray, they are not really satisfied. So you see that the strong aspect of the soft skill or the candidate of mover are teamwork, punctuality, communication, digital literacy, problem solving. When you go through management and leadership, it's going to reduce a little bit, and actually it makes sense because from the target group we are working with, we are not looking to go straight to a leadership. We are looking to somebody that will be operational in a team and will learn slowly. So it has been quite a good result for us after this several experimentation on this job. You can go. I will go back. No, back. Right, here. So, well, I try to compile a little bit the limitation around the selection process linked with the demand of the private sector. And the first one, for what we observe is the limitation of the multiplication of the test. So must you have tests, and more you sidelined the vulnerable, socioeconomical vulnerable candidate. So how you can make this balance? I just gave you some numbers. The functional tests, or the literacy numeracy, take off 47% of the use. The digital tests take off 52% of the use. The English is a big barrier. And sometimes the soft skill for the demands we have take off 50% of the candidates. So we see that it's very important to demand, but we also need to find a way to negotiate what means all this. The other point also linked with that is the time they are giving to us. Because if you're giving me time, I can reduce the demand of the test and take time to train better this use. So this is the balance. The other question that I'm going quickly, it's my last one. The other thing I think very interesting is a mismatch between aspiration and job offer. And I'm going to be a little bit hard around it, but it's not because I have a socioeconomic situation that I don't have a dream. I don't have a dream. And there's a kind of mismatch between the ambition of the youth versus the low-skilled job available. And some of them, well, they need the job, they need the money, they go there, but it's just a jump to do something else. So we go to a turnover in sometimes, and I think it's important to take it in consideration. I will go quickly. The other part, no, let me in this page. The other part is the systematization of partnerships. So we have a good relationship. We don't have a partnership. We don't have this possibility to integrate and a number of use with this company. We don't have this bridge really built strongly to have a systematization of this use inside the company. We also have this question about corporate social responsibility. When we are trying to present another profile of candidates, we are always a little bit slipping to this, well, it's a social action. It's not a social action. When we bring use, we bring quality because they are able to do the job, and it's not a social responsibility. And this question of first opportunity. The geography Lelio spoke about, and the cost and effort Lelio spoke about. So I will pass that. We can go for the last one. So for the last one, our perspective, as you remember, the first picture was this use inside these big shoes, and it was not his size. So we experiment, and we decided that we have a lot of sizes, and we need a shoes that everybody fit in, and we need to accept it. So this is a question of equality against equity, and perhaps in the future, a liberation of any barrier. And this is exactly what MOVA is dreaming about, the possibility to dream of all possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation, and this is very interesting.
I'm sorry if I took a lot of time.
No, not at all. It's been worth going into the details. Do we have any questions from the audience? Feel free to either type it in the chat or raise your hand, and we can have you speak directly. So while we wait for our audience members to write a question or perhaps to raise their hand, I wondered, Anne-Cécile, if you could talk a little bit more about the changes necessary based on the different geographies where MOVA has worked. Lelio and some of the panelists talked earlier a little bit about the need to adapt the specific approaches in demand-driven trainings to the specificities of different geographies. Could you tell us a little bit about the ways in which MOVA has had to adapt when delivering these trainings in Maputo, the capital of Mozambique, versus in Cabo Delgado, for example?
Yeah, thank you. I think about the adaptation, the main factor was the educational level. So in some different cities of Mozambique, because youth have more access of education and a diversity of education and quality of education, we had the possibility to maintain the same demand-driven training system. But when we arrive in some locality where the youth don't have so much access or the quality is really less, and I just would like to specify for our colleagues from OPM that we have in Mozambique some cases where you have 80 students by class, 80 by class. So you understand the lack of opportunity for them to learn. So when you have this case, all the training, all the journey is changing from the mobilization, from the kind of job you are going to dream for the matching, from the time of the soft skills. So you will see after, I really invite people to join us in the 1st of June, because we have a beautiful research around the correlation between soft skill training and soft skill abilities and the socioeconomic level. So you'll see that if you are in a community that you need really more time to work around soft skill, and you really need more time to work around technical skills. So the question here in the adaptation is the time, the language. So you need a simplified language, and you need really more practice. So you take off a little bit the theory and you go really practicing with them. And in some way, or say you're reducing the writing. You're going more with the practicing and the orality. So I will say this is more or less the kind of adaptation we have. I don't know if I saw that there's some other people in MOVA also. I hope they are free to speak, because I'm a little bit alone here in my table. But yes, I will say this is the main change we have: time, the language, and the practicality, and less writing, the orality. Exactly. In sometimes we also included local language.
Okay, thank you for that, and Cécile. We've had a couple of questions come in through the chat, so I'll read them out. The first question is from Christy. She is saying, you made a great point on corporate social responsibility versus return on investment. And she asks, do you have a good way to communicate that return on investment for companies on hiring youth?
I don't have a magic wand, Christy. I'm sorry. We are still debating around how we can communicate as clear as possible. What we decided is we don't want to communicate. We are working with target group and trying to seems charity. We don't want that. We want to give dignity. And I think the time we invest in training show that we have candidates who have quality. So we are a little bit avoiding this question of social responsibility or charity and really focusing on skills. Actually, we learned from Arambe the question of negotiating from the beginning before drawing the demand-driven training around this skill. So in sometimes it seems stupid, but in sometimes they ask for a driver with a master degree. Well, it's perhaps not necessary. So let's speak a little bit about what you need, exactly what will be this function. So speaking more and more with them and trying to find more details about this function. Well, it seemed that the communication helped to just give it to him what he needs without speaking about the old demand he has. So we are reducing the demand without speaking about the target group. I'm not speaking about poverty line. I'm not speaking about this kind of neighborhood. I'm just speaking about you need this competencies. Okay, I will give it to you. But I'm not speaking about the cooking I'm doing after all to design and my selection system.
Thank you, and Cécile. And building on that, Rosie Legg asks whether MOVA has had any qualitative feedback from employers that can support a business case for recruiting young people from the programs. And she says she appreciates that would not be a return on investment, but it would be starting to move towards return on investment and making the business case for prospective employers.
Yes, I think what I was saying, as I was saying as an introduction, has been so easy to get a feedback from the companies. And for us, it was absurd because we are, in some way, it's one of our clients. Our clients are the youth, but also our clients are the companies. And this is this feedback. I wrote it here. I don't remember this follow-up from them. It's quite complicated. So yes, we are beginning to build a business case to try to convince more employers around the quality and honestly what we are giving to them. Are you okay? Yeah. But we need more substantial. So because it's quite new, we are going to do it a little bit more to create a real strongest business case.
Thank you, and Cécile. And just one final question, as I'm conscious we're running short on time. Farzana Ibrahim asks, what was one interesting thing that shocked or surprised you about working with women in this line of work? For example, what were some of the roadblocks which women imposed on themselves?
I didn't understand the English, sorry. Sorry.
What was one interesting thing that you found about working with women in designing these trainings? And in particular, perhaps some of the obstacles that women imposed on themselves?
Yeah. It's fascinating for me. Is the most interesting thing. It's really how you make a change. My passion is behavior changing, and I've been fascinating to how creating a methodology for a transformation in the sense that you take a conscience of you want to do a new choice. And I've been fascinating that it's possible. I've not been testimony of it's not possible. What we've seen, we saw so much change in this woman in a very deep aspect in a so short time. When you think, I remember colleagues was telling me, well, Cecilia, well, you take care of people, where they are turning good, but we are doing it in 2 weeks to 6 months. And I didn't believe it at the beginning that, how we can go so far in only 2 weeks to 6 months, only 6 months. Imagine 6 months, it's an adult process transformation. So I would say what really surprised me was the receptivity of the men, and the men engaged to contribute for more equity around gender. And what have been also a big impact for inside this gender training is the ripple effect in the community and the family. So it's not only them, because it could be also dangerous that you are the only one deciding to make a change in your vision, but your family, your husband, your boyfriend, your friends doesn't want to change. But what we saw, it's the fact we are just making a kind of injection, make a ripple effect in a lot of people around them. I will say where I see a little thing is when they're entering the company and the company doesn't have a gender perspective. Here we saw a kind of retrocession of the process. When you have colleagues that they are with bias in the contratation, or there's some microaggression inside the company, you have a retrocession of the girl, and it can be quite complicated. But this is also, I will make a little bit of advertise. We are going to speak about it deeply the 1st of June.
Great. Thank you, Cécile. So unfortunately, we've run out of time to ask any of the other questions that we've had. But thank you very much for your presentation and for sharing about MOVA's learnings and experiences on soft skills and demand-driven training. You've really provided some very powerful examples of the impact that MOVA's initiatives have had on youth in Mozambique.
Thank you very much.
But before we close, I would like to invite our audience to join us for next week's webinar, which Cécile has already done a very nice job of flagging to everyone. So the next webinar will be next Wednesday on the 1st of June at 2 p.m. UK time. This will again be a two-part event looking at pathways to empowerment. And in the first hour, we will again have a panel discussion. We will be joined by an impressive panel of speakers, including Naila Kibir from the London School of Economics, Agnes Kusimbe from the International Food Policy Research Institute, Fauzia Vikar, who's an expert on women's empowerment, and MOVA's very own Lelio Gunguru, who you saw speak earlier today. In the second hour of our webinar, we will have the chance to take a closer look at MOVA's approach to facilitating agency and innovative methodology for women's economic empowerment. The link to register to that event and our final event on the 8th is available on OPM's website's MOVA webinar series page, and it will also be circulated shortly on both MOVA's and OPM's social media. And so we hope to see you there with us. To end, I would like to thank Sandra Tamel for her interpreting, as well as the Forever Consulting team for their technical support to this webinar. And finally, I would like to say again a big thank you to our wonderful speakers and to you, our audience, as well, for joining. We'll see you next week.